The relationship between the United States and Europe is facing a critical test. The Ukraine conflict has exposed deep divisions, particularly in the wake of recent comments by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. European leaders were dismayed by Vance's criticisms, which targeted their handling of the crisis and their focus on social issues over the Russian threat. Adding fuel to the fire, the U.S. has engaged in peace talks with Russia without European participation, further stoking transatlantic tensions. This exclusion has sparked outrage and a sense of betrayal among European leaders. The U.S., under pressure domestically, seems willing to consider concessions to Russia, including the potential lifting of some sanctions. However, many in Europe view it as a dangerous appeasement of an aggressor. European leaders are particularly concerned about the possibility of a US-Russia agreement that would impose Ukrainian neutrality and carve out spheres of influence in Europe. The upcoming summit in Paris, hosted by French President Macron, is shaping up to be a pivotal moment. French President Macron has called for a summit of European defense powers in Paris. This gathering is a direct response to the growing unease over the US's unilateral approach to the Ukraine crisis. European leaders, feeling sidelined and ignored, are determined to reclaim their agency in a matter of vital importance to their own security. High on the agenda will be the issue of Ukraine's future. Macron and other European leaders are adamant that any decisions regarding Ukraine's fate must involve Europe. They are pushing for a comprehensive security arrangement for Ukraine, potentially including a pathway to conditional NATO membership. The summit is also expected to address the growing need for a more robust and independent European defense capability. Many European leaders now believe that a stronger European defense posture is essential, not only to deter Russian aggression, but also to give Europe a more influential voice on the world stage. The outcome of the summit will have profound implications for the future of European security and the transatlantic alliance. Across Europe, there is a palpable sense of anxiety. The escalating conflict in Ukraine, coupled with the perceived unreliability of the US, has left many feeling vulnerable and uncertain. The ghosts of the past, particularly the appeasement of Nazi Germany, loom large in the minds of many. The US push for lifting sanctions on Russia, even if presented as a bargaining chip, has been met with deep skepticism. Critics argue that it sends the wrong message to Moscow, effectively rewarding its aggression and emboldening further expansionist ambitions. They fear that such concessions will only whet Putin's appetite and lead to further instability in the region. Adding to the unease are reports that the US is pressuring Ukraine to hold elections this year. Many view this as an attempt to force a premature and potentially destabilizing political process on a country still grappling with a devastating war. This uncertainty has fueled calls for a more assertive and independent European foreign policy, one that is not beholden to the whims of Washington. Zelensky's resolve, a leader's plea for sovereignty. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been the unwavering voice of his nation throughout the crisis. He has repeatedly asserted that Ukraine will not be bullied into accepting any deals made without its direct involvement. His message is clear: Ukraine's sovereignty is not negotiable. Zelensky has expressed gratitude for the support Ukraine has received from the US, particularly in terms of military aid. His words serve as a powerful reminder that this conflict is not simply a regional dispute, but a battle for the very principles of sovereignty and self-determination. A continent in flux uncertainty grips Europe. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has cast a long shadow over Europe, creating a climate of uncertainty and apprehension. The economic ramifications of the war are being felt across the continent. Energy prices have soared, fueled by sanctions on Russian oil and gas. Supply chains have been disrupted, leading to shortages and rising inflation. The war has exacerbated existing economic vulnerabilities, raising fears of a recession. The conflict has also triggered a massive refugee crisis, the likes of which Europe has not seen since World War II. Millions of Ukrainians have been forced to flee their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries. The choices made in the coming weeks and months will determine the continent's future for decades to come.